Hi, welcome back. I'm Arooks, and this is my YouTube channel. I was going down my list because, like I said, I do lists of things I wanted to talk about on my channel. This is one that's sort of hard for me. I mean, these aren't not all the subjects I'm going to be covering are going to be easy. Some of them are going to be fun. This one was really hard for me. This one is really hard for me because it was hard for me to do. It is still hard for me to do. I'm still something that I'm working on constantly. And it's forgiveness. Forgiveness is something that we toss around a lot as just humans. You should forgive them, can you forgive me? I'm sorry. And it's a hard one because we spend a lot of time saying I'm sorry. We all know those people. I'm one of those people. I'm constantly apologizing for things. Sorry, I don't mean to be so me. I'm sorry for existing. I'm sorry I said something that hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I couldn't make you coffee. I'm sorry all the time. And then we start apologizing for things like, I'm sorry for what I said during the argument. I'm sorry for how I hurt you. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? Oh, I hate those fake apologies. I don't know about you. The I'm sorry for you getting hurt, but it wasn't my fault. So why are you saying I'm sorry? I'm guilty of that one. I had to actually learn how to apologize correctly. It's hard because you don't want to admit your faults on anything. You don't want to take responsibility. That's freaking hard. Because like you can apologize. People do that apology that sounds like an apology but isn't an apology, and that's not good either. And I found myself in the course of my 38 years, um, I had to learn how to know the difference. And I know it seems like, oh, you should know the difference. But no, when somebody is apologizing and you want to forgive them, but you'll hear whatever it is you want to hear. So they're not really apologizing, but you'll take it anyway. You somewhere know that that wasn't a real apology, but you know what? I'll take it anyway. I'll take it. No, no, then don't give it. I spend a lot of time on forgiveness because it is something that I had to learn how to do. It's not saying I'm sorry and forgiving somebody for something minute, like, hey, I'm sorry I broke your favorite coffee mug. That's one thing. But when you are apologizing or saying I am sorry for something that you have done that has fundamentally hurt somebody, forgiveness is a little bit harder. And when you're saying, I'm sorry for hurting you, I am sorry for doing something that has caused you pain. Can you forgive me? You have to understand that when you are apologizing for something you've done, when you are making amends for something, you can't always expect them to forgive you. And that's a hard lesson I had to learn. And now there's also they can forgive you for what you've done, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to let you back in their lives. And that's okay too. Um I had a lot of issues with abandonment. I had a lot of issues of self-loathing. It went beyond me not liking myself. I loathed myself. I hated myself. I was angry and I didn't understand where a lot of that hurt came from until I actually started addressing it. But I was hurting. And so I turned that hurt, I turned that sadness, I turned that pain into vindication. I turned that pain and sadness into anger. I turned it into, I'm going to hurt people so that they can hurt as bad as I can. Or because I had abandonment issues, I am going to hurt them before they hurt me. And that went on for a good solid decade. I think between the ages of 15 and 25. It's pretty sad that I can almost tell you exactly when that was. It started, well, the foundation of that started before 15. But when I really went and turned it into, I turned it around and stopped being affected by the things that was happening to me, was when I was 15, and it was my first sexual assault. Um, that's when I went rogue. I went monster. I don't know. I was so awful. I was so bad. I was so hurt. I was so broken in that period of my life between the ages of 15 and 25 that there's seriously, after I did my repair work, it is literally blankets of time where I can't remember. I honestly can't remember some of the most awful things I did. And so when I got to that point where I was making amends with the people that I did hurt in that time period, they were telling me all this stuff, and I am horrified. Like, I am horrified because I'm like listening to and it sounds like somebody else did it. Like, I can't imagine me doing those things, but I know I did. And nothing is harder. And this blends into my truth video. Nothing is harder than listening to somebody when you're apologizing and you're making amends and you're asking for forgiveness and you are telling them and acknowledging the things that you did to people and listening to them tell you the awful things that you did to them. It's eye-opening and it's painful and it's I don't even know the words to describe it. It's healing. I know that sounds strange, because again, you're facing those things, you're facing your truth, and you're discovering who you were and where you came. And I think that's also the thing. I think when I say it was healing, um, it's because you see that person, that those things that you did, and you think to yourself, my God, look at how far I've come. Look at how much I've grown. And it's that bittersweet, it's that pain of, I can't believe I hurt this person that badly. I can't believe I did those awful things. And at the same time, you're like, I never want to do those again. And the simple fact that when you are asking for forgiveness, when you are making amends for something that you've done and you are listening to those things, it's eye-opening. And when they are telling you about all of these things that you've done and you are horrified or you feel bad, that's actually a good thing because I know when I was a lot of the bad things that I've done have been towards men because of my assault and because I didn't tell anyone and because I buried it and I let it rot inside of me. I wanted to hurt men as much as I got hurt. And so I did. And I am not proud of that. Um, but when we were having a raw and honest discussion, and he was telling me all of these things, and I just was shocked. I had no idea. I had no idea when I was like, I had no idea. I thought, okay, we're going to talk and haha, you were a bitch and it's all going to be fine. And it was a raw conversation, but we were able to talk it out. And I said, I am so sorry. And I know that I can't make up for what I did in the past because what I did in the past has affected your life so much. But know that I'm not that person anymore and I've changed. And know that all I want is the best for you. And I hope that you can forgive me. And he did. He did forgive me. And he has been a very good and close friend ever since, which was good. It's good. There's also a time where I had to look somebody in the eye that I treated very badly and go, it wasn't you. And I am sorry. You did nothing wrong. That was on me. I acknowledge that. And I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. And after that conversation, we never spoke again. And that was okay because it was not my job to force them to forgive me. I apologized and I made it very clear and I acknowledged my wrongdoings, but I have to leave it there. And I had to leave it there. And there are still people out there who I have apologized to who still hate me. Hate me. And there are people out there who I have said I'm sorry to and I've had conversation with too who have forgiven me but don't want to have anything to do with me. And that's okay too. And that was a hard lesson to learn because I was like, "Oh, we should be friends and we should forgive each other." And that's not how the real world works. And that sucks. Because truth is, forgiveness is very personal. And you can heal, but you can't tell that other person when you ask for forgiveness, okay, well, I apologized. I said I was sorry. Well, everything should be fine now. Well, that's not your job. You can ask for forgiveness, but that doesn't mean they have to forgive you. And they can forgive you, and that doesn't mean that they have to let you back in their lives. And that was a very hard lesson for me to learn in my therapy and walking through all of this. That was incredibly difficult. Um, because I asked for forgiveness. Everything should be good, right? It's not my job. It is not my job to force them to forgive me. My job is to admit my faults, admit what I did to them, hurt them, damaged them, affected them, and acknowledge my part in that. And then say, When you're ready, I hope that you can forgive me and move on. That's the part that nobody tells you when you say, okay, just apologize or just make amends. It's not that easy. And I know that there are people in my life who have apologized to me, and there are some people who have hurt me greatly. And I was able to m- mend my fences, mend the hurt, um, stitch things up and move on. And then there are some people that I've forgiven and I forgave them for me because holding on to that anger and holding on to that bitterness and holding on to that rage and the all of that wasn't healthy for me. I forgave them, but I don't want to have them around. I forgive them and I've moved on. And that's okay too. There's one person that I found it very, very hard to forgive. There is one person I found it next to impossible to forgive. And still to this day, there are some parts where I can't forgive. And I struggle in forgiving myself because it's easy. It's not easy. It's easier to say I'm sorry to somebody else because you're not having to take responsibility or you're taking responsibility, but then, okay, if it's somebody else's job to do the work of working through that pain. But when you do something, especially what I did to these people, and it wasn't, I mean, I was an awful friend and an awful sister and an awful person. I was awful. I was selfish. I was broken. And I was like one of those wounded animals that was just going to lash out because I was going to protect myself at all costs. And I did. And it cost a lot. And I hurt a lot of people. And I started working on myself and I started digging in therapy and I started doing the work and I started making amends and I started apologizing and I was feeling really good about that. I was really feeling really good. I was like every apology, every amends that I made, every act of admission of wrongdoing felt good because then it was like all of the you're digging out all of the shit and muck and mire and you're cleaning the house out. You're mudding it out, as they say. And then you get to the part where you have to forgive yourself. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't forgive myself. I had done some awful things to people. And I said awful things. And I carried that around for years after I was doing this work. And I couldn't understand why I wasn't getting past a certain point in my healing. And I couldn't understand why, when I was working in therapy and I was working in counseling, I couldn't understand why I wasn't getting better. And and it wasn't even in a counseling session when it dawned on me. And it was it was some random Tuesday, I don't know. And I was laying there And I was beating myself up and I was laying with this guilt of what I had done. And I realized I wasn't kind to myself. I realized I had to forgive myself. I realized that for me to grow, for me to move on, for me to get past my past, I had one person I wasn't brave enough to forgive. Because it takes bravery to forgive yourself because we're taught to be selfless. You're taught you have to self-cut to make amends. Maybe that was just me. Maybe somebody else had a healthy childhood. I did not. So I don't know. I had to forgive myself. I had to say and acknowledge, yes, you did some terrible things. You hurt a lot of people. And yes, you need to work on that. Why did you hurt a lot of people? Where was all that coming from? What were you thinking? What were you doing? Where the root of it all? Yes, you did those things. And I had to look myself and go, but you are a good person and you are healing and you need to forgive yourself and move on. I still have a hard time forgiving myself. And I have a hard time. I sometimes have a hard time with the whole for asking for forgiveness and making amends and then letting them heal themselves because I want to fix it. I want to make it better. I want to make it better. I want to make what I've done and the wrongs. I want to make up for my wrongdoings, but I can't. You can't unring the bell. I can't go back in time. There are some things that I have done that have affected people down to their core and have changed the course of their life and their psyche forever. And I can't go back and change that. I can ask for forgiveness and I can say, I hope you can forgive me. And I can't make them forgive me. I can't make them forgive me. Just like other people can't make me forgive them. There are people in my life who I have forgiven, but I don't need to have that conversation with them. There are some times where you can forgive a person and you don't have to find closure. Sometimes forgiveness isn't wrapped up in this nice little pretty package where I ask for forgiveness, you forgive me, we all sing off in the sunset, and it's all tied up in this pretty pink bow. That's not how it works. Forgiveness isn't pretty. When you make amends to someone, when you finally start doing the work and they do this in 12-step programs, they do this in therapy, and you go through the list of 12 steps and make amends where you're not hurting the other person or however that one goes. If me asking for apology coming into their lives is going to hurt them, I don't I it's okay. If they happen to come to me and need to close that chapter in their lives for their own healing, I will be very glad to talk with them about it. But there are some people that they've got to come to me because I know me trying to go to them that will do more damage. You can't force somebody to forgive you. You can just be open and ready for that moment. And there's a list of people that I know that I can't sit there and just look up on Facebook and go, "Hey, can we talk?" It's not my job. They can look me up. And there are some people who have looked me up and we've talked. And I'm not saying avoid the opportunity because there are times where the opportunity has presented itself in a way that I could apologize and ask for forgiveness and make amends in a healthy, constructive way. Forgiveness is messy and can be messy. It can be nice, neat little package and everything ends up all happy. I mean, I've had those instances too. Some of my closest friends now have found they have forgiven me and have healed, and they look at the person I am now and they're like, "You know what? You're not that person. You've done the work. You've grown. Let's move forward." There's some people who haven't, and that's okay too. You can't force somebody to forgive you. And somebody can't force you to forgive them. If you're not ready because of whatever reason, don't. But always remember every day, pick one thing. If you were as deep, dark, as broken and wounded as I was, what I did is I picked one thing to work on that day, one thing to forgive myself for that day, one day at a time. Give yourself a little grace. Just like you don't want somebody who you've hurt to just stay there and constantly remind you of all the things that you've done for them, because done to them, and oh, I've forgiven you, but I'm going to remind you every day about how you hurt me. That's not healthy. That's toxic. If they do that to themselves, if they do that to you, if they stand there and go, "Of course I forgive you, but I'm going to remind you every day that you did it," then they haven't forgiven you. So forgive yourself. Don't do that to yourself, because I know I often do it to myself still. After you start facing the hard truths about yourself and the things that you've done, then you have to start forgiving yourself and asking for forgiveness for things from the people that you've hurt. Forgiveness is hard. Asking for it, giving it, all of it. Hard. But forgiveness is not a nice little package. It's not a period at the end of a sentence. It doesn't wrap everything up and your problems up in a little bowl and it doesn't automatically heal everything. That's the part I had to learn too. When you make amends and you ask for apology, it doesn't automatically make everything better. And that was a shock to me. I thought I said I was sorry. Why do I still feel like garbage? Because I was healing. And because I had to go through the battle of putting right what I made wrong. And that's exhausting. And that's hard. And you're not going to necessarily feel all good at the end of it. You will feel like a hard day's work. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. But you know what? I grew and I'm healing. And that's a good thing. Remember, make amends where you can. Understand that people can forgive you and not want you back in their life. Understand that there's some people who don't want to forgive you. Understand that there are people who will never ask for forgiveness. And also understand that you have to forgive yourself and you have to keep forgiving yourself. It's not a one time deal, it's an everyday, constant forgiving yourself and loving yourself and moving forward. And even if it's something small, even if that day, because there are days where it's hard for me, even if on that day, I just forgive myself for not picking out the right type of underwear or not, I don't know. Give yourself some, give yourself a break. Give yourself some credit. And no, even baby steps forward are still steps forward. I hope you have a great evening. Well, or whenever you're watching this. And thanks for coming to my channel. I will see you next time.